And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are looking at testing next week. The season is getting closer. All the F1 cars are going to be out. We can compare them. There's not as much hiding as there was at their F1 team launches. This is the real thing. Let's get into it. So welcome to your guide for F1 testing. Now, the most important thing is, when is it? Well, it is going to be, on the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th of February. Now, 7 till 4 o'clock, day 1, 7 till 4, day 2, 7 till 4, day 3. And we'll get into when exactly that is, because although the teams haven't, I think, released who's doing what, normally the teams either give one driver one day, another driver another day, and then split the third day, or they each do half a day, half a day each in day 1, 2, and 3. And then it is going to be on Sky Sports. It's going to be live. There's going to be commentators there. You can watch it if you have Sky Sports. So I imagine the F1 app, if you're outside of the UK, or have one of those VPN things, I'd imagine. But forums do have quite an interesting thing. What is F1 testing and why is it so important? So we've had all the launches. We've had F1 75 launch. And, there is a McLaren last year with lots of what seemingly aerials on. What is that? We'll get into that too. So pre-season testing, it is crucial. It's a crucial period for the Formula 1 team drivers as they prepare for the season ahead. It's when teams are going to get that first opportunity to put their new machine to the test and see what worked on paper, worked in the wind tunnel, actually works out on the track, which we've realised doesn't always happen. For example, in 2022, when the new rules came out, absolutely no one predicted the porpoising. So, this phase also gives drivers a chance to familiarise themselves with their cars and figure out what works and what really doesn't. So after they've been spending months middle of last year, developing these new cars for the season ahead. There has been some kind of compromise, because don't forget, the 2026 regulations is a big regulation change. But the testing days are going to be held at the Bahrain circuit, and they've been held there annually since that big pandemic. But each day is split into a morning and an afternoon session. In total, we have 8 hours of track time across the those 3 days. Only one car from each team is allowed on track at a time. So technically 10 cars in one go. 2 drivers, as we mentioned, are going to be sharing those duties. The teams decide to give a full day of track time to one driver, or they can, as I mentioned, split the sessions between both, regardless. Provided there are no injuries or heavy crashes, each driver is expected to clock at least 12 hours behind the wheel throughout this 3-day test. And then the phase helps collect what is going to be really important data on aerodynamics, team performance, engine efficiency, fuel consumption, reliability, and overall handling with the help of the driver. It also provides an insight, as I mentioned, to how those cars are going to stack up against their simulations. But we've got Viz Paint. What is that? That is an ugly Williams from quite a few years ago. What is Flow Viz Paint? Well, it's to help with the visualization. No, they're not artists, but it's a blend of fluorescent powder and light oil, usually apparently paraffin oil, applied by the engineers to specific areas of the car that they want to analyse during pre-season testing. The paint, it kind of acts, they're saying here, as a temporary sensor. It's going to reveal how the airflow interacts with the car, kind of like the wind tunnel as it's put through its paces. But this isn't a wind tunnel model. This is real life Formula 1, how it goes down the straight, how it acts in the turns. They can get a lot more information when they look at the patterns of the paint. And it's applied, and the car is driven around the circuit. The airflow, it interacts as the car speeds up, navigates the corners, creating streaks. And yeah, you probably need to be some kind of scientist to recognise the patterns, but they do form something of a visual map. And this is important because it's going to give insights into the aerodynamics of the car. Once this returns to the garage, engineers, they get photographs of these painted surfaces and look at them like an artist would, really. But instead of mesmerising with their artistry, they're going to analyse the paint and the data to see where the gains are. Engineers can use this data to make adjustments such as fine-tuning of the wing angles, modifying bodywork features, or trying out different setups even. Now, anyone remember Rob Smedley, the former Ferrari and Williams, Felipe Massa's race engineer? He explained the Flow Viz paint best, saying, you paint it liberally on the car then goes out as it's moving up to speed and going through a corner. through a cornering condition. The paint dries as the light oil evaporates, and you end up being able to visualize very clearly what sort of flow structures you use. When we analyze them, he said, we're usually looking for things like separation, as in where the flow is separating and where we're not getting decent flow structures through the surfaces of the car, looking at those patterns. And they could tell from looking at those patterns about the aerodynamic, about what's going on with that car. So what are these though? Well, I said we'll get into that. These are known as aero rakes. Yeah, kind of like aerials, but aero rakes. They are metal fence-like structures, and they're covered in lots and lots of sensors. Fairly expensive. They're typically positioned around the front and rear, the front axle of the car, or the rear axle, around there, and the diffuser. These teams employ these during pre-season testing. We've seen them also normally in P1 practice 1 settings as well, and they're basically making sure that their wind tunnel results align with real world results. Is our wind tunnel, and is the sensors coming from here equal or accurate to what the wind tunnel is? Sometimes wind tunnels can have a calibration problem. That happened to McLaren, I think, a couple of years ago in 2023, and they basically said, we messed up our car, we're going to be really rubbish for the past part of the season. They were not wrong. So aero rakes are equipped with multiple, they call it keel probes, as they measure air pressure and velocity at different points around the car. So while this car is going around track, while this car is going around the Bahrain track, they're going to deliver the real-time data to the engineers, allowing them to see what the air is like going around the car. The data also helps pinpoint areas where turbulent air might be affecting performances, where they maybe got it wrong, or it's not working as intended, or maybe bits they do need to work on. Now, here's the $10 billion question maybe. Are timesheets important in pre-season testing? Before I read this, I'm going to say yes and no. Now, during their times, prioritise gathering data and familiarising drivers with their new machines. But they don't tell the whole story. Why? Well, the test, you could have, for example, you could think, we want a Monza style setup to see what the area is like around this track. Obviously, you would never have a Monza setup in Bahrain. You could go out there on the slowest times with the heaviest fuel. That's going to be your car at its slowest. And it is the fuel loads and tyre compounds that are really probably going to make the biggest difference. Some might engage in sandbagging. That's something Mercedes did, where drivers deliberately lap slower to keep their true pace and potential under wraps to divert attention from certain features on the car. Another scenario is glory runs, where a driver from a midfield team, basically the 90s or early 2000s, or backmarker, they climb the streets with a fast lap using the softest tyre compound and fuel load, very low fuel, like a qualifying fuel load, almost the opposite of sandbagging. That's why, although pre-season testing offers a glimpse into the new season and what the new season is going to have in store, these true capabilities of the team remain under wraps. We can have an idea, but we're never really going to know the true idea of how fast these cars are until, let's be fair, we hit qualifying in Australia. Because even practice, yeah, you got a good idea, but you don't really know for sure. And then qualifying pace could be very different to race pace, as we've seen, where cars have been very good at qualifying and not particularly good on the race, and vice versa. But another little tip, if you want to know, is keep your eye on the mechanics. Now, not many of them are not poker players. So the interesting thing is you can really see if there's disappointment, worry, etc. on their faces, assuming obviously that the camera shoots them, which is always quite interesting as well. And sometimes if you're kind of good at body language, you can sort of tell with the drivers as well, and obviously the team principals and engineers that they end up interviewing. But until then, if you made it to the end, that's absolutely fantastic. A massive thank you for just clicking on this video is more than enough. But if you want to do a bit more, make sure you are subscribed if you want. Hit that like button, hit that notification button so you don't miss a video. And hitting the like button if you want to do a bit extra to give us a hand, or comment below. Let us know what you think about pre-season testing. Who is going to be the fastest person in Bahrain? But until then, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. We will no doubt see you next time. Then we will probably have another video, obviously, before pre-season testing starts. But until then, stay safe.